I'm calling to order the originally scheduled, I shouldn't say originally, the scheduled May 28th meeting of the Waterloo Board of Adjustments. And we have tonight 6 decision items and then a discussion item about a change in a law that was just enacted by our legislators. So the agenda we have in front of us was mailed to us. Are there any corrections or additions that you see?
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Then we have in our packet the minutes of our regularly scheduled April 23rd meeting, and I do have some corrections.
Okay.
Just a few. On page 4, under decision items, number 1, the second paragraph, the lien is L-I-E-N, not
Okay.
lean, L-E-A-N-E. And I was wondering about the notation of the motion that was carried. It said at number 3, this is on page 5, number 3, it says the resolution is recorded. Is that clear enough, or should we say that the Blackhawk County Recorder's Office will record the resolution?
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it needs to be recorded. I mean,
And
that
so
means-
that's clear?
Yeah,
and you-
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
just so going forward, it's clear enough.
Could I interrupt for just a second, excuse me?
Yeah,
I don't know how big of a deal it is, but on page 4 in the third paragraph from the bottom, they misspelled my name.
How did that happen? Again,
okay, yes, thank you. Oh, it is important. Okay, and then on page 5, under number 2, the second paragraph, my name is spelled wrong. And then the sentence, it says, Dornoff responded that while the USDA may consider it temporary, and then maybe comma, the building code has its own guidelines, or because the building code has its own guidelines, it needs a little clarity there. And the last thing on page 7, on the top line, it says, Wolf also stated, it's just a typo there.
okay.
So,
Could I also point out that on page 5 in the paragraph underneath where Jerry's name is misspelled,
Oh, there-
mine is too.
okay, there it is again. All right. So, any other corrections? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the corrected agenda?
So moved?
Second.
You mean the minutes,
Oh, but the minutes, thank you.
the corrected minutes.
Craig moved.
Second.
Beckman seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're going to move on to our decision items. Is Councilperson Boson on the line? Is he on Zoom with us?
Nice.
Oh, there he is.
Yes, I
Good.
am.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure you were with us. Thank you. All righty. Our first decision item is a request by VGM Association doing business as Strategic Imaging on behalf of the Iowa WU for a variance to the sign regulations to allow for 3 temporary banner signs to be permanently used in the M1 Light Industrial District located at 204 Amesboro Avenue. Staff report, please.
This is starting off with staff. The applicant's requesting a variance to allow for installation of 320 square foot banners on the Hippodrome. Banner type signage is allowed, but only on a temporary basis, not to exceed 60 cumulative days within a calendar year, and the applicant's requesting the variance not to be temporary. The property is located at 204 Amesboro Avenue on the Hippodrome building at the National Dairy Cattle Congress grounds. The site in question is Zone M1, Light Industrial District, has been zoned as such since 1969. The section of the zoning the section of the zoning ordinance that pertains to his request, Chapter 26, Outdoor Advertising Signs and Billboards, 1026-1. The M1 Light Manufacturing District banner signs shall be allowed on a temporary basis not to exceed 60 cumulative days within 1 calendar year. The applicant's requesting to place three 40 by 8, 320 square foot banner signs on two sides of the building. The three banner signs will be placed on the two walls of the Hippodrome building. The time in which the banner signs will be up to 1 year, but the variance is being requested so that it can be longer than 60 days. The signage is being proposed to advertise the new Waterloo, which is the arena football team, which will hold games at the Hippodrome. Criteria: lack of reasonable return. There will not appear to be a lack of reasonable return to the request, as the applicant could have a banner signs up for 60 days. Uniqueness: there would be uniqueness to the request, as the signs will be placed on a large wall of the building and will have no effect on other signage. Public considerations: there's been no objections to the request. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by VGM Association to be business as strategic imaging for a variance to sign regulations to allow for three temporary banner signs, 320 square feet each, signs to be permanently used in the M1 Light Industrial District located at 204 Amesboro Avenue, be approved for the following reasons. The request will not appear to have a negative impact upon the area. There would appear to be uniqueness to the request, as the sign will be placed on large walls of the building and will have no effect on the other signage, and there is no objections to the request.
So, in your staff recommendation, should we also add that the expiration of this variance is May 28th, 2025? I guess it's only for 1 year.
You can do that, yes, as a condition.
Because that was one of my questions on the general description, the last part of the last sentence, to not be temporary, meaning the max is a year. I mean, it's 60 and they're asking for a variance from that. But if we approve it, then the max would be 1 year, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Do we know, are there plans to maybe go to a more permanent style billboard, or is
That
that?
would be up to ask the applicant if they're here, yep.
Seeing none?
Push comes to shove, they could come back next year.
Right.
Absolutely.
Other questions of staff?
So you came up with May 28th of 25? Is that what you, okay.
Yeah. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this variance, this request? Anyone want to speak against this variance? All righty. Other questions? I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that the request by VGM Association doing business as Strategic Imaging for a variance to the sign regulations to allow for two temporary banner signs to be,
Craig, you mean three?
3.
okay, I'm reading here, it says two. It does say three in the other, yeah, and I
The
knew that.
updated one.
Okay, scratch that, we'll say three. Three temporary banner signs to be permanently used in the M1 Light Industrial District located at 204 Amesboro Avenue be approved for the following reasons. The request would not appear to have a negative impact upon the area. There would appear to be a uniqueness to the request, as the sign will be placed on large walls of the building and will have no effect on the other signage. There have been no objections to the request, and the expiration date of this will be 5/28/25.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our second decision is a request by Jeff Camp for a variance to the accessory structure regulations to allow for an accessory structure in the narrow dimension front yard. A variance to the size limitations to allow for a size of 2,288 square feet, 848 square feet more than the 1,440 square feet allowed, a height of 20.5 feet, 5.5 feet more than allowed, in conjunction with a one-story home, and a variance to allow for vertical metal siding in the C1 Neighborhood Commercial District located at 722 Dearborn Avenue. Staff report, please.
Okay, this is starting off with staff. The applicant's requesting a variance to allow for an accessory structure in the required front yard and 2,288 square feet of accessory structures, 884 square feet more than the 1,440 square feet allowed, and a height of 20.5 feet, 5.5 feet more than allowed in the conjunction with a one-story home, and no longer need a variance to the metal siding. The request would appear to conform with the classification of this area as industrial on the future land use map within the City of Waterloo Comprehensive Plan adopted on August 21st, 2023. Section of zoning ordinance that pertains to this request, Chapter 5, General Regulations, 10-5-1E, accessory structures. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow for an accessory structure in the required front yard and 288 square feet of accessory structures, 848 square feet more than the 1,440 square feet allowed, and a height of 20.5 feet, 5.5 feet more than allowed in conjunction with a one-story home. And the property is adjacent to the new A-Line EDS building. Therefore, the applicant's new structure would not be out of place in the area, as it is also Zone C1 Neighborhood Commercial District and surrounded by industrial uses to the south and east. The applicant currently has two sheds, one of 192 square feet, the other of 128 square feet respectively, and a hoop building, an existing 432 square foot garage. The applicant has stated that the 192 square foot shed and the hoop building will be demolished when the new structure is completed. The existing 432 square foot garage and the 128 square foot shed will remain. Criteria: lack of reasonable return. There will not appear to be a lack of reasonable return, as the owner could build a building that meets the zoning requirements. Uniqueness: there would appear to be uniqueness to the request, as A-Line EDS just completed a large commercial building just to the south of the property, and the property is Zone C1 Neighborhood Commercial District and has other commercial industrial buildings in the area. 3, public consideration. Approval of the variance would not appear to have a negative impact on the area, and there's been no opposition to the request. Therefore, staff recommends the variance of the accessory structure regulations to allow for an accessory structure in the narrow dimension front yard, and a variance to the size limitations allowed for a size of 2,288 square feet, 848 square feet more than the 1,440 square feet allowed, and a height of 20.5 feet, 5.5 feet more than allowed in conjunction with a one-story home in the C1 Neighborhood Commercial District located at 722 Dearborn Avenue be approved for the following reasons. There would appear to be uniqueness to request as a property adjacent to a large new commercial building, and there's other commercial industrial uses in the vicinity, and the property is Zone C1 Neighborhood Commercial District with the following conditions: that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, including but not limited to parking, landscaping, screening, drainage, etc., and that, number 2, the larger shed and the hoop building are demolished within 30 days of the completion of the new accessory structure.
Okay, the only thing I'd like to add is on the subject to the following conditions is number 2, that the larger shed, let's add the 192 square foot shed
Okay.
for detail. Okay, what questions do you have of staff? Any questions?
You had mentioned a previous variance was for the metal siding on one of these. Is that something that was in the works or has already been granted? So
We'll
it's-
talk about it under discussion items, but it's no longer needed.
Okay.
Okay. All right, is there someone in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of this variance request? Well, step forward then. State your name and your address for the record, please.
Jeff Camp, 722 Dearborn. I'm just looking to build a garage is really what it comes down to. So the 2 buildings I can take down, I don't no longer need them. So when I move the garage over to that side of the house, there'll be a new driveway, cement all the way. So,
Where's your hoop building on your diagram?
it wasn't on there because when we drew it, I knew I was taking it off. It's where it says old garage.
Gary, if you look on page 16, look on page 16,
16.
right ahead of the pickup truck. You can just see the top
Oh,
of it.
see the, okay,
It's just like a metal, that's coming down as soon as I'm done. So everything that's in it goes in the garage. So I kind of had to ask to keep it or else stuff would be in the rain.
yes, okay.
I mean, keep it as far as, until I get done building, yeah.
Okay. Other questions of the applicant? Thank you. Anyone in the audience that would want to speak against this variance? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request for a variance to the accessory structure regulations to allow for an accessory structure in the narrow dimension front yard, a variance to the size limitations to allow for a size of 2,288 square feet, 848 square feet more than the 1,440 square feet allowed, a height of 20.5 feet, 5.5 feet more than allowed in conjunction with a one-story home in the C1 neighborhood commercial district located at 722 Dearborn Avenue, for the following reasons. Number one, that the final site plan must meet all applicable city codes and regulations, including but not limited to parking, landscaping, screening, drainage, setbacks, etc. Number two, that the 192 square foot shed and the hoop building are demolished within 30 days of the completion of the new accessory structure. And number three, there's been no opposition to this request.
Yeah, and when you read this, you just left out the variance to allow for vertical metal siding in the C1
But we don't need
That's
that.
correct, because it no longer applies.
because of the new
Yep.
Yes.
law. Very good. We haven't discussed that yet, but, okay, all right. No objections. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next decision item is a request by CGA Engineers on behalf of Babic Properties LLC for a variance to allow a front yard setback of 13 feet, 7 feet less than the 20 feet requirement, a second variance to the parking setback requirement to allow for a setback of 0 feet on the west side, and a third variance of 1 foot on the east side, 5 feet and 4 feet, 5 feet and 4 feet less than the, what does that mean? 5 feet and 4 feet less than the 5 feet required
It should
respectively?
be 4 feet less than the 5 feet required.
It should be 4 feet less than the 5 feet requirement?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Required respectively in conjunction with the construction of a new eightplex to replace an existing dilapidated eightplex in the C2 Commercial District located at 1738 Flower Street. Staff report.
This is Schneider with staff. The applicant is requesting 2 variances to the parking lot setback requirement and a variance to the front yard setback to build a new eightplex. The proposed request would not be in conformance with the classification of this area as low-density residential on the future land use map within the City of Waterloo Comprehensive Plan adopted August 21st, 2023. However, the comprehensive plan is to be used as a guide for development. Section of the zoning ordinance that pertain to this request, Chapter 25, off-street parking required, 1025, 2B6, and Chapter 11, R4, multiple residence district, 1011.3, bulk regulations. No part of any vehicular use area shall be closer than 5 feet to any lot line. The R4 multiple residence district requires a minimum rear yard of 20 feet. The C2 district utilizes the R4 district regulations for setbacks for residential developments. Babic Properties LLC is in the process of purchasing 1038 Flower Street from the City of Waterloo and has a development agreement with the city to demo the existing eightplex and build a new eightplex. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow for a 0-foot setback for the parking lot on the west side of the property. The applicant owns most of the property to the west of the property in question A variance is being requested to allow for a 1-foot setback on the east side of the lot, 4 feet less than the 5 feet required. The approval of the parking lot variances ensures the applicant is able to meet the parking stall requirement of 16 parking spaces. A variance to the front yard setback to allow for a 13-foot setback, 7 feet less than 20 feet required, is being requested. The front yard setback variance is needed to help ensure the applicant can place an 8-plex back on the property and still meet the parking requirements. The property, as well as 2 other properties to the west, have an existing 8-plex on them but do not meet minimum parking requirements. The applicant will need to have detention for the property, and the site plan submitted does not currently show any detention area. Lack of reasonable return. There would not appear to be a lack of reasonable return to the request, as the applicant could build the parking lot with a 5-foot setback, and an 8-plex could be constructed with a 20-foot front yard setback. Although to meet the required parking, the applicant would either need to reduce the overall size of the units or decrease the number of units if a variance were not approved. There would appear to be uniqueness to the request, as the property owner owns the 2 properties to the west, and the property has an existing 8-plex that will be demolished. The request would not appear to have a negative impact upon the surrounding area, and there has been no opposition to this request. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by CGA Engineers on behalf of Bavick Properties LLC for a variance to allow for a front yard setback of 13 feet, 7 feet less than 20 feet required, a variance to the parking setback requirement to allow for a setback of 0 feet on the west side and 1 foot on the east side, 5 feet and 4 feet less than the 5-foot required respectively, in conjunction with the construction of a new 8-plex to replace an existing dilapidated 8-plex in the C2 Commercial District located at 1738 Flower Street, be approved for the following reasons. There would appear to be uniqueness to the request, as the property owner owns the 2 properties to the west, and the property has an existing 8-plex that will be demolished. The request would not appear to have negative impact upon the surrounding areas. There are multiple 8-plexes and commercial businesses in the area, and there has been no opposition to this request. I did receive 1 call from a neighbor who was in favor of the request, as long as the parking lot was located in the rear portion of the lot.
So I have a question. The statement that there's no detention on the property, and yet we don't have the statement that says that the final plan will include meet all the codes, including drainage requirements.
This is Schrader with staff. Certainly fine if you want to add that standard language, but the site plan, which is page 32 of the packet, does show a green area that goes partially along the front yard and then along the side yard. It does not specify that that's where the storm detention area is to go, but that's what's been discussed with the applicant and the applicant's engineer. So they do propose stormwater detention for the development.
Okay, so we'll add it.
But it's fine to add that,
Yeah.
the engineer wording, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Well, he's not gonna have much room for a stormwater detention pond.
Well, it depends on what he does with it.
Well, I know, but I mean, it'd have to be.
Yeah.
I guess it wouldn't matter as long as it did the job.
Other questions?
Is this, so he owns the 2 properties to the west here on Flower Street. And we're moving it to the front. It looks like is this building stylistically, which I don't really see anything on here, is that gonna then be kind of brought into conformity, so all 3 of these are gonna look similar and?
They're,
Bring up
very
some curb
similar in
appeal.
appearance.
This is Schrader with staff.
Yeah.
I would say they're not. The ones to the west are a pretty,
And I guess the question I asked you, because on the report here, and I made a note, there's a word on here in uniqueness, in the language, we're talking about 2 different places. There would appear to be uniqueness to the properties. The property owner owns the 2 properties to the west, and the property has an existing 8-plex that will be demolished. It sounds like, I know we're demolishing this property, but it almost sounds like we're also maybe demolishing another property.
no.
I didn't assume so. but
Right,
yeah.
no, so, and this is Schrader with staff, so in case it wasn't clear, the city of Waterloo is actually the current owner
That's what I
of
thought,
this
yes.
property, so it became dilapidated and essentially abandoned, vacant for a long period of time in really, really rough shape. The city of Waterloo went through the court system and got title to this property, and then went out for a request for proposals for redevelopment proposals, and we did get a few different proposals and selected this proposal to move forward with the demolition and construction of a new. So no, it's a bit different, but the ones to the west that the applicant also owns, they're a little, what I would say, an older, outdated style. If you look on page 28 and 29, both the pictures on 28 and the bottom picture on 29 show good examples of what the existing buildings look like. And then if you look on page 33, that's a rendering of what the new one will look like, which is a much more modern looking design. It will include patio on first floor and wood deck areas on the upper floor for the units. And it's pretty typical to most of the multifamily construction we've been seeing these days, just kind of a much more
It'll have more
standardized, modern, more curb appeal.
Which is,
We would
was the
say
ultimate
significantly
question.
more curb appeal. yes.
Definitely be a neighborhood improvement.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you. Is there someone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this request?
I'm here just more for questions, if there are any.
State your name and address, please, for the record.
Larry Kuzman, 5106 Cedar Falls, or Nordic Drive, Cedar Falls, CGA Consultants. I'm here just for any questions that
Okay.
staff may have, so.
And do we have any questions for the applicant?
No.
No. Is there anyone in the audience who would speak against this application? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request by CGA Engineers on behalf of Babbage Properties LLC for a variance to allow a front yard setback of 13 feet, 7 feet less than the 20 feet required, a variance to the parking setback requirement to allow for a setback of 0 foot on the west side and 1 foot on the east side, 5 feet and 4 feet less than the 5 feet required respectively, in conjunction with the construction of a new eightplex to replace an existing dilapidated eightplex in the C2 Commercial District located at 1738 Flower Street for the following reasons. Number one, there would appear to be a uniqueness to the request as the property owner owns the two properties to the west and the property has an existing eightplex that will be demolished. Number two, the request would not appear to have a negative impact upon the surrounding area as there are multiple eightplexes and commercial businesses in the area. Number three, there has been no opposition to this request. And number four, that a stormwater detention area will be installed as part of this project/request.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Our fourth decision item this evening is a request by Zayan Properties LLC for a special permit to allow for approximately 155,000 cubic feet of rubble fill to allow for the construction of a commercial building in the M1 Light Industrial District located south of 2345 Osage Avenue. Staff report, please.
This is Dornoff with staff. The applicant's requesting a special permit allow for 155,000 cubic feet of rubble fill, allows for construction of a new automotive repair shop. The site is currently zoned M1 Light Industrial District and is zoned as such since the adoption of zoning ordinance 2479 in 1969. Surrounding land uses under zoning are as follows: to the north, residential properties and vacant land zone R2, 1 and 2 family residence district. To the south, the Canadian National Railroad, Dubuque Road, and the city of Evansdale, zone M1 Light Industrial District. To the east is one single-family residence, Zone A1 Agricultural District. To the west is the Canadian National Railroad, Dubuque Road, Commercial Building, Zone M1 Light Industrial District, and the City of Evansville, Zone M1 Light Industrial District. There would appear to be enough screening along the south side of Osage Road from the residence to the north. The final field plan will need to be approved by engineering department, and they will need to submit a drainage plan when the property is developed. The property in question is not located in a floodplain, and the fill is specifically to level out the ground. The future land use map designates this area as mixed commercial. The applicants are requesting a special permit to allow for 155,000 cubic feet of rubble fill in order to level out the property. The applicants are planning to install the rubble fill in order to construct a new automotive repair facility. While the property does border the south side of Osage Road, the property is located at a lower elevation than the residences to the north side of Osage Road and should not have a negative effect on the residences. Welver noted during tech review that if the building is larger than 5,000 square feet, which is, they're showing only 3,900 square feet, it would require sprinklers. And then the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission voted 8-0 at their May 14th, 2024 meeting to recommend approval of the request. And therefore, staff recommends that the request by Zon Properties LLC for a special permit to allow for approximately 155,000 cubic feet of rubble fill to allow for construction of commercial building in the M1 Light Industrial District located south of 2345 Osage Avenue be approved for the following reasons. Number one, it would appear that the special permit would not have a negative impact surrounding the area. Number two, the request would not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. Subject to the following conditions, that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, including but not limited parking, landscaping, drainage, etc. It should be noted during P&Z, there was one person there, and she mainly wanted to make sure there's proper buffer fencing between her and her property across Evans Road, which there appears to be plenty, and that would be part of the building review process when it comes up. So,
Okay, and that's the property with all the trees right there?
correct.
All right. Any questions for staff?
All right. They've been infilling this for quite some time. This is now just to get them in compliance so they can proceed?
Correct.
Okay.
They apparently did not know they were, I mean, the city limit sign is literally on the border of the property, so they thought they were on the other side of the border,
Okay.
so.
Okay. And on page 37, down at the bottom where it says drainage, the final plan will need to be approved by engineering
Correct.
under the following reasons. Subject to the following condition, number one clears that up, addresses that,
Correct.
so we don't need to add any more language in there.
Right, and drainage is taken care of during the building review process, so it's not technically something that would be part of the fill request.
Okay.
And would that apply to fire sprinklers as well?
Right, well, and once again, I mean, their site plan shows that it won't be that large of a building.
Oh,
And once again, that would be during building review too. That they would have to meet every code from, so,
okay.
So we don't need additional language in here for the reasons.
no.
Everything would be covered by,
Right,
based
exactly.
on what is here.
Correct,
Okay.
Are they gonna be required to have hard surface parking areas?
yes,
Okay, because that doesn't, I'm assuming then that, as John said, that number one, subject to the following conditions, covers all that?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
They have to meet all applicable city codes, and that's one of them.
Okay. Other questions? Is there someone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this application? Against this application? Okay. I would entertain a motion.
I will motion that the request by Zane Properties LLC for a special permit to allow for approximately 1,555 cubic feet of rubble fill to allow for the construction of a commercial building in the M1 Light Industrial District located south of 2345 Osage Avenue be approved, and for the following reasons. Number one, it would appear that the special permit would not have a negative impact on the surrounding area. And secondly, the request will not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area, but that it be subject to the following conditions: that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, et cetera, including but not limited to parking, landscaping, drainage, et cetera.
I have a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. All right, decision item number 5, request by Levi Architecture on behalf of Hawkeye Community College for a special permit to allow for the construction of a 7,456 square foot expansion of the existing building at the Regional Transportation Training Center with a variance to the parking requirements to allow for 51 parking spaces, 14 parking spaces less than the 65 parking spaces required in the A1 Agricultural District located at 6433 Hammond Avenue. Staff report.
This is Schneider with staff. The applicant is requesting a special permit to allow for the construction of 2 additions totaling a 7,456 square foot expansion to an existing building at 6433 Hammond Avenue to allow for a 17,809 square foot building. The area in question has been zoned A1 agricultural district since the adoption of the zoning ordinance in 1969. Surrounding land uses and their zoning designations are as follows. To the north is vacant land, zoned A1 agricultural district, and Hawkeye Community College residences, zoned R4RP. To the east and west is vacant land, so zoned A1 agricultural district. To the south is Blackhawk County Sanitary Landfill located in rural Blackhawk County. The applicant will need to submit a site plan with a drainage report to the engineering department. The future land use map designates this area as low-density residential. The comprehensive plan is to be used as a guide for land use. A school is allowed by special permit use in any zoning district. The applicant is requesting a special permit to allow for 2 expansions to the existing building at the Hawkeye Community College Regional Transportation Training Facility. The addition to the north of the existing building will be 30 feet by 101.33 feet, approximately 3,039 square feet. The addition to the south will be 41.9 feet by 101.33 feet, 4,245 square feet. The new additions will be used for additional classrooms, an office, lounge space, and a new shop. The City of Waterloo zoning ordinance requires that all public institutions obtain a special permit issued by the Board of Adjustment after a recommendation of the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission. The special permit ensures that the request meets necessary conditions and safeguards for its operation. The site plan submitted meets those necessary conditions. The proposed additions would appear to better serve the needs of the students and the community. The existing parking lot has 31 parking spaces that are 8 feet wide. The applicant is proposing an additional 20 parking spaces that are 9 feet by 20 feet. 1 parking space is required for every person regularly employed on the premises, and 1 parking space for each 2 students at maximum occupancy. The site has a maximum occupancy of 119 students, and there are 5 employees. Therefore, 65 parking spaces are required for the site. The applicant is currently showing 51 parking stalls, which is 14 spaces less than the 65 required. The Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the request at their regular meeting on May 14th, 2024. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by Levi Architecture on behalf of Hawkeye Community College for a special permit to allow for the construction of a 7,456 square foot expansion of the existing building at the Regional Transportation Training Center with a variance to the parking requirements to allow for for 51 parking spaces, 14 parking spaces less than the 65 parking spaces required in the A1 Agricultural District located at 6433 Hammond Avenue be approved for the following reasons. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. The request would not appear to have a negative impact upon the surrounding area. The request represents a positive expansion by Hawkeye Community College and the addition of further training for job opportunities, employment, and economic development in the Cedar Valley, and with the following conditions: that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., including but not limited to parking, landscaping, screening, drainage, setbacks, etc.
Thank you. Questions for staff? I just have a curiosity question. Hawkeye Community College is zoned A1 Ag?
Yeah, because it's right there on the edge of the city, right next to, I mean, next to farmland, so that's why. I mean, they rezoned the area close, where they built the apartments and stuff to the north.
Yeah,
They rezoned that area, but, I mean, since a school can be located in A1, it wasn't really necessary to have any rezoning.
interesting. Okay. Any other questions for staff? No. Anyone in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of the application? Come forward. State your name and address, please.
Yeah, Mike Toll. I'm with Levi Architecture at 3228 Cedar Heights Drive in Cedar Falls.
Uh-huh.
Just here representing Levi Architecture and our client, if anybody has any questions.
My only question is, do they need 65 parking spaces? Do they fill their current lot?
No, not, so per building code is where they would need the 65. It's
Understand.
more of a use, no,
Yeah.
they're not. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was getting
So
at. They
essentially
don't-
Hawkeye came to us and said, hey, we'd like to add parking here, and that's where we added the
Yeah.
29-foot wide stalls.
Sure. Well, it looks like they got enough ground out there certainly to park
That's the other part
at
too.
least 14 more
Yeah.
cars, so.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, there's enough space out there that they've really got that
Yeah.
They could-
packed.
yeah.
They could find the space.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
call it the range. It's several acres
Okay.
of paved area.
That's just a curiosity question.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I will entertain a motion, please.
Madam Chairman, I will make a motion to approve the request by Levi Architecture on behalf of Hawkeye Community College for a special permit to allow for the construction of a 7,456 square foot expansion of the existing building at the Regional Transportation Training Center with a variance to the parking requirements to allow for 51 parking spaces, 14 parking spaces less than the 65 parking spaces required in the A1 Agricultural District, located at 6433 Hammond Avenue, be approved for the following reasons. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. The request would not appear to have a negative impact upon the surrounding area. The request represents a positive expansion by Hawkeye Community College and the addition of further training for job opportunities, employment, and economic development in the Cedar Valley, and with the following condition: that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, and so on, including but not limited to parking, landscaping, screening, drainage, setbacks, etc.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All righty, and our final decision request is a request by the Cedar Bend Humane Society for a special permit to add onto their existing building at 1166 West Airline Highway.
Before we get started on that, I just want to tell you, I will be abstaining from this as I'm on the board of Cedar Bend Humane Society.
Thank you for letting us know. Staff report, please.
This is Andrew, staff. The applicant's request to construct a 33,700 square foot addition onto their existing 5,887 square foot addition or building located at the Cedar Bend Humane Society on West Airline Highway. The Humane Society began operations at this location in 1971, according to the city directory for that year. Proposed special permit will not appear to negatively impact pedestrian or traffic conditions in the area, which is served by West Airline Highway, and that road is classified as a minor arterial. Site in question is zoned M1 light industrial and has been zoned as such since the adoption of the zoning ordinance in 1969. Surrounding land uses and their zoning are as follows. To the north, low-density residential uses zoned A1 agricultural. South is West Airline Highway and light industrial uses zoned M1 light industrial. East is Humane Society's pet cemetery and low-density residential zoned M1 and C2 commercial. And to the west is low-density residential and heavier industrial uses zoned M1 and M2 heavy industrial district. No buffers or screening are required for this new addition. Buffers become a requirement when the following apply. When C districts abut any R1 or R2 residence district, or M districts that abut any C1 or any R district. The applicant has turned in a site plan that does show a stormwater management plan, and that will need to be completed before certificate of occupancy is issued for the new structure. Again, the Humane Society has operated at this location for 53 years with no known issues. And the area is comprised of residential properties built as long ago as 1951 and light industrial uses constructed in 1999. To construct this addition, approval of the special permit is required under Chapter 27, Special Provisions, Exceptions, and Modifications. One of the main reasons a special permit for a kennel is required is because they can have outdoor exercise areas in proximity to nearby residentially zoned land, if applicable, is examined. There are nearby residences, but they are zoned M1 and A1, and the setback provisions for the principal building and outdoor exercise or runway areas to be 250 feet and 500 feet away do not apply since they are not residentially zoned. The new addition is comprised of multiple uses that include the following: adoption, animal control, circulation, clinics, employee spaces, intake, public spaces, services, utilities, and volunteers. A kennel requires one parking space for each 250 square feet of floor area, excluding animal exercise areas. Other areas that could be excluded are mechanical, warehousing, storage, or other similar uses, along with areas not used for patron use. Within the new addition, there is a 1,120 square foot courtyard that is being excluded from the parking requirements too, putting the total enclosed area of the addition at 32,580 square feet. The engineering site plan notes 16,553 square feet is being excluded from the parking calculations, equating to 16,027 square feet being counted towards those parking requirements. Dividing 16,027 square feet divided by 250 equals 64.1, rounding up to a total of 65 parking stalls required for this use. The site plan shows 76 stalls, an excess of 11. The M1 Light Industrial District has height limitations of 4 feet or 48 stories, and at the highest point, this new addition will be 20 feet 8 inches. 6 buildings will be demolished to make way for the new expansion, and the Humane Society is preparing to start their fundraising effort, and they want to get the plans approved first before proceeding with that. At the May 14th, 2024 meeting, the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission unanimously approved the request 8-0. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by the Cedar Bend Humane Society for a special permit for an addition of approximately 33,700 square feet onto their existing 5,887 square foot building in the M1 Light Industrial District located at 1166 West Airline Highway be approved for the following reasons. It would appear the special permit would not have a negative impact upon the surrounding area, as this use has been there since 1971. The request would not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. The request is in conformance with the future land use map and comprehensive plan for this area, which designated as industrial. 4, the request would appear to be compatible with surrounding area, which is primarily comprised of light industrial uses, and subject to the following conditions: that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., including but not limited to parking, landscaping, drainage, etc.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
I may have missed it, but there are no oppositions to this request?
We have not heard any opposition to the request.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the audience? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of this request? State your name and your address, please.
Good afternoon, Adam Daters with CGA Engineers, 5106 Nordic Drive in Cedar Falls. We are the civil engineer on the design team for this project. We also have some representatives from Cedar Bend here today. If you have any questions, we might have somebody online. I don't know if they were going to try to get on or not. But if not, then I'm sure we'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
I do have one for the Humane Society reps. If you could come up, please. Someone. Your name and address.
My name is Christy Gardner, 6740 Leversey Road, Cedar Falls. I'm the executive director of the Cedar Bend Humane Society.
Okay. This is more of a curiosity question, but how large is your service area? Is it just the metro, Blackhawk County? Where all do you provide service?
So our main services are through like Blackhawk County. We have contracts with like the city of Cedar Falls, Waterloo, Blackhawk County itself for animal holding. We also, our reach is like Bremer. We hold for a lot of our small surrounding communities that are in Blackhawk County, like Evansdale, Elk Run. We also like Waverly, Independence. It's very small contracts, but you know, we're like the only humane society in this area. You know, Iowa City, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids would be the closest facilities that, you know, can house stray animals or provide the services that we do.
And this project will expand your ability to provide service?
Correct.
You're maxed?
We
if you
are
will.
maxed, yes.
Okay.
We handle probably close to 4,000 animals a year. The majority of them are from in Blackhawk County. We also offer a lot of services for like low income, spay, neuter, vaccination, those types of things. We have 2 veterinarians that work within our shelter that help with all of the stray animals, the animals that we put up for adoption, that type of thing. But they also, we do a lot of clinics to serve, you know, the people of the community. So there's a lot of wellness clinics that we do. This will allow us to have, you know, have even a larger reach within the county because we're kind of limited on what we can do with that just because we don't have the space. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? All right, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request by the Cedar Bend Humane Society for a special permit for an addition of approximately 33,700 square feet onto the existing building, which is 5,887 square feet, in the M1 Light Industrial District located at 1166 West Airline Highway for the following reasons. Number one, it would appear the special permit would not have a negative impact on the surrounding area, as this use has been there since 1971. Number two, the request will not have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. Number three, the request is in conformance with the future land use map and comprehensive plan for this area, which designated as industrial. Number four, the request would appear to be compatible with the surrounding area, which is primarily comprised of light industrial uses. Number five, there has been no opposition to this request, and subject to the following conditions: that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., including but not limited to parking, landscaping, drainage, etc.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this request. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And Craig abstains. May your fundraising efforts be wildly successful. All righty, we're finished with our decision items, and now we'll move on to our one discussion item, which deals with House File 2388, an act relating to the regulation of styles and materials used for residential building exteriors. Mr. Dornoff, will you explain?
Okay, so the legislature passed this legislation. The governor signed it a few days ago, about a week and a half ago. And basically, how it affects Waterloo is Waterloo can no longer regulate what kind of siding you put on an accessory structure. Now, this applies to all residential structures and secondary structures, but we didn't regulate primary structures. We only regulated accessory structures. So if somebody wants to put steel rib siding on an accessory structure next door to you, there's nothing we can do about it.
And so where is it in our code book?
It'd be under accessory structure.
But this is only applicable to residences and accessory structures,
Yeah,
not businesses or?
we didn't have any regulations on businesses as far as their siding, so yeah, it only applies to residences. And I'm sure for most people, it's not gonna be a big deal until somebody builds a house or accessory structure with steel rib siding next door to them, and
John, I have a question on page 85, number 3, says the building is in a common interest community. What is a common interest community?
Condo?
that would be like where it's trying to think, like say there's a bunch of homes in a garden community.
With a homeowners association?
Well, it's not a homeowners. They actually own the property. The people just own their homes, but not the land they sit on.
Oh, like a townhome.
It's not really
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I should know it. I mean, I've dealt with several of them, and
It's a condominium style
right,
ownership, but they're detached single-family homes.
correct.
So they wouldn't.
Perhaps like the Henning edition north of town, maybe? I mean, if you've ever noticed that on your way to,
Yeah, I know
to
what you're talking
Denver.
about. I don't know. There is, a friend of mine lives in one in Cedar Falls on, I can drive right to it, but I can't tell. I want to say Briarwood. But anyway, hers is, there are several detached, single-family homes in that particular development, and they all own an undivided interest in the
Land.
whole property.
Right.
Land, huh.
Seeing this a lot in areas where housing prices have gone through the roof. Even, I mean, like when I was living in Portland, because I mean, the same house that we bought for 100,000 here goes for 500,000 there. So, you know, so what we saw was developments where they will put 5 or 6 homes and they're on smaller lots and they're smaller and it's supposed to be more communal, that kind of thing. It depends on, there's all kinds of them.
Okay.
So, where is it?
Do you have any background as to why this law was brought forward?
I don't. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure who did it, why they did it, but I'm guessing some constituent to a legislator wasn't allowed to build what he wanted, and so they decided to change it. So,
This is where it goes?
yeah, it's
All right,
this
it's
section,
right
so.
there. Thank you very much. To be continued. All
Madam
right.
Chair,
Yes, please.
just a quick comment. You know, because I was a fire marshal for years, and usually when two codes are in conflict, our code, their code, the most stringent code takes precedence, even if it has to deal with the state. So I'm curious on how that works in this case.
We will be following, since the state passed the law, we will be following their code. We will be working to change the ordinance, but we got several ordinances we need to change. So it might take a few months before it goes through, but we will be changing our ordinance to reflect what the state has mandated.
I pulled the section 103A.7 that's referenced on page 85 of our packet that talked about the state building code. And I don't know, it didn't say much about strictness or differences or,
No, it did. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with siding or anything like
No.
that, so.
I don't know why they referenced that paragraph in the statute, but okay.
This board has, for quite some time, always had questions about vertical and horizontal siding and what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
And it's been something that we've asked the department to look into, so apparently.
Oh, that was mainly on bigger lots. I mean, there was always, yeah, I mean, seemed to be trepidation to allow it within residential neighborhoods,
Somebody wanted
Close
to put
in.
up a steel building and
say
put
on,
vertical siding on it.
you know, Ranchero Road. You got several of those variances, which is fine. I mean, you're talking about huge 2-3 acre lots.
Well, we just saw it today with the gentleman on Dearborn.
Right.
You know, you took out the vertical siding variance and
Exactly.
Yeah, because the commercial one, it would be more,
right behind it,
yeah, in alignment with the look. So, all right, so there's nothing we can do. We've shared it and.
Yeah.
And it's,
So you won't see any variances for steel siding anymore.
okay, all right, well, that's kind of good. All right, anything else to come before this board? All right. I actually can declare this meeting complete. Because we have finished everything on the published agenda. That is the new Robert's Rules, issue 12 or something. So this meeting is adjourned. It's 5:04.
And we next